Welcome back to the table, friends. I am your humble host, GreyDMs, and with me, as always, is my co-host and co-conspirator, Owen.
Hello.
You are listening to Tabletop by Night, a weekly podcast where we continue our exploration of Vampire the Masquerade. Tonight, we gather around the table to answer the question, who are the real monsters in the dark?
Is it us?
Yeah, another easy answer.
Oh, thanks.
Before we get started, due to the delay in which we're releasing these things, this is probably the first podcast where we've actually gone through the experience of releasing the episodes online. So for all of you small chosen fruit,
people are listening to these?
Wasn't that part of the assumption?
I didn't know that's how it worked.
I mean, I'm pretty sure we actually know every single person who has listened to this, unless there's some weird single lovely German listener who's defying multiple for no reason.
I like to hear what kind of stupid things they say.
Yeah. The statistics are weird. But yes, so hey, awesome. By the time you actually hear this, I'm sure we will have gone on for 7 weeks. So maybe you know how far ahead we're actually recording. But for those who are still listening by the time they hear this, I'm impressed.
Your constitution impresses me.
We will, hopefully, we've gotten a little bit better. Hopefully, we're a little bit, I don't know, tighter or more entertaining. I don't know. And we will try to continue amusing you as you join us at the table.
Yeah. I mean, forgive us our, screw-ups.
Forgive us our trespass. Speaking of screw-ups, tonight's topic, we are talking about the Nosferatu.
Ooh.
Clan Nosferatu.
They sound badass.
That's one way to look at it. We got a little quote to kick things off here. I believe this is a quote from the Book of Nod. You are the children of shadow. You are the sons and daughters of darkness. Seek the darkest place. Make it your own. Feed on the wicked. Feed on the sinful. Feed on the ugly souls. For such is our diet, such is our Father's wish, our preordained meal. My childer, look not at your visage to curse me, for I know the beauty that lies within, and no greater beauty will there ever be. So, who are the Nosferatu?
I mean, there's a movie named after them, right?
Yeah, they're just all movie stars.
Yeah.
Some of them could be. The Nosferatu, the clan has nicknames.
Yeah. I'm sure these are beautiful, nicknames that, encapsulate, wonder and beauty.
Well, of course, they're the clan of the hidden. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Sewer rats, lepers, priors, crawlers, Nazis.
Nazis.
Yeah.
That's not very creative.
Not sure what that's about. So the Nosferatu are a clan of, they're a clan of disturbingly looking individuals in appearance or presentation.
So you're saying they look at people disturbingly?
Yeah, they scare people.
Oh. So no. These are not beautiful people.
Well, they could be, but there's always some sense of horridness in them. So, to rewind time to set the stage for our discussion, we have to talk about, as always, the trace back to the original antediluvian that started the clan. In this case, legend tells that there's a gentleman by the name of Absilmiard.
Okay.
I'm pretty surprised that the citizens of Enoch had such weird names, but
so many consonants in one name.
But anyway, basically, Papa Nosferatu was a hunter of great skill and beauty who attracted the attention of one of the second generation.
Okay.
Some of the stories, most of them, it's the beautiful one of the three. I think there's a couple other variants of it. But the idea is that one of the second generation chose him to be their prey and relished in the hunt of the hunter. Exactly. So they hunted him as prey and they embraced him. But during the embrace, he suffered a slight. He suffered a scar, depending on which version you're looking at. It's the whole point is it's something minor, some slight imperfection to his otherwise beautiful countenance. And that was a slight that couldn't be taken. That was the end of all. And from that moment on, they became his enemy. So go figure, that little slight led to Absilmiard say Papa Nosferatu leading the charge against the second generation.
My. So he's one of the people that's like, this cannot be tolerated.
He's
we have to.
the person.
Oh, wow.
Instigated.
So we're past the point where we're saying it was probably the Ventru, and we're saying that.
Well, some versions the Ventru organized it, but a lot of the perspectives the Ventru clan believes this was that the Ventru was the one that abstained.
Oh, okay.
But the Ventru definitely may have set up the pieces, but like the Papa Nosferatu was the one who was like, we're going to go eat those.
Gotcha.
Specifically, I'm going after the one that did this to me.
Is he wearing like one of those Phantom of the Opera masks that's like covering like just side of his face? It's like, I'm so ugly.
Look how wicked your beautiful scars are. Your red tattoos. But yes, so essentially his vendetta drove the ensuing violence that would happen. And as such, he was harshly punished. Twisted by Cain into a hideous mockery of a human being. So that the ugliness of his deeds and his soul basically took the form of flesh. However, before that happened, he did sire children. So there were some members of the fourth generation created already. A group of them who would be later known as the Niktuku.
Okay.
Have you heard that before?
No,
okay.
I'm just agreeing with you because you're saying things.
And that's one of the most absurd names I thought you were just like, okay. And I was like, oh, that's a rational name. Of course, the Niktuku.
Yeah. I mean, it almost sounds like, fake Native American.
Yeah, something like that. I think I saw one version of it where it tried to say that there's some word that means death that's close to nicked. And so it's a combination of a couple words. But essentially, the Niktuku were essentially his childer who he blood bonded.
Oh, okay.
So we talked about blood bonding, I think, a little bit.
We talked about it when we talked about the Tremere.
Yeah. So Papa Nosferatu basically blood bonded all his children except for either one or three, depending on which version of the tale. It's either one person or three. We're going to go with the one for now. We're going to refer to her as the maid.
Okay.
I've heard her, once again, different versions call this person different, but there was one that was not blood bonded.
The help, basically.
Yeah, kind of. And when Cain cursed them, Papa Nosferatu decided to take out all his anger on his children and believed that by killing them, he could make their deaths an offering to Cain to redeem what he had, the sins that he had committed. But of course, the blood bonded children were like, I guess that's okay. But the one that wasn't blood bonded decided to take the road out of town and just run the freak away.
Yeah.
So
smart.
This Nosferatu would go on to effectively, if you believe the stories, found the entire clan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She is very old. Over 7,000 years old is the guess. So she is a fourth generation, and she likes to sleep in the dark reaches of Russia and rise and raise and ride her chicken house over Russia. Cursing children. This is Baba Yaga.
Oh, wow. That's actually pretty badass.
Now, her children inherited her role as the prey in this great hunt. And basically, the modern day Nosferatu fear the Niktuku as like the boogeymen.
Okay.
They are like the shadows in the dark who are always coming after them. This gives kind of a reason why they have a tendency to dig deeply and fortify, because it's not that they fear all the other vampires, it's that they fear the Niktuku always creeping up on them. And that's also why they're kind of like, it's why they're paranoid.
Okay.
They have that kind of tendency. So they say in the beginning, most of the Nosferatu kind of resorted to humans as prey. They kind of couldn't go into cities because of their horrible curse. So a lot of times they found that they were kind of pushed to the edges of society. They hid in caves. They dug deep. It's apparently the Nosferatu clan has this built-in urge to go down and to dig.
Okay. That's why they like sewers so much.
Sewers are like the greatest place. Also, catacombs.
Oh, I mean, that makes sense. Again, dug out, plus you're hanging out with some of your buddies.
Yeah, why don't you just get a whole bunch of people in a cramped, tight place? Nothing could go wrong.
Then you just have a rave every other day.
Nosferatu raves are pretty cool.
I would assume so.
So, Yeah, so in the early days, the Nosferatu basically found it very difficult to deal with humans other than just stalking them as monsters in the night.
Yeah, they couldn't hang out in plain sight like everybody else.
Right. But by the time Rome got established and they started digging more entrenched locations, entrenched cities, these cities were brought with dark places that needed to like get waste out, with places to keep the dead, and opportunities for the Nosferatu to find these havens grew and grew to the point where the founding of modern day Rome and the catacombs beneath it were like a very good opportunity for the Nosferatu to go in.
They're just like subsidized housing. Woohoo.
Yes. Their clan throughout the years has always been seen as one of the lesser clans. They've always been looked down, but they've also had, there's an air of respect because they are the monsters underneath. And let's be frank, no self-respecting Ventru or Toreador is going to want to go down.
No, I mean, you really wouldn't want to. If you know what's down there, why would you go down there? I mean, it's not like you're going to go down there and be welcomed with open arms or anything.
No. So using their like hideous nature kind of now is not a boon, but at least a crutch. The Nosferatu were able to hide in places that others could. So, for example, during the Dark Ages and the Black Plague, they could look like lepers and carry diseases. They also, well, cheeky Nosferatu, started figuring out how things worked, including how irrigation systems and how disease propagated, so that they could start threatening the populace of Ventru lords. Oh, hey, you got a nice river here. It'd be a shame if it got contaminated.
I like them more and more.
Yeah, the Nosferatu are very handy. They've definitely figured out how to make their curse work for them in some places. Also, throughout the thousands of years, basically, there have been different bloodlines of Nosferatu. Maybe someday we'll kind of go into some of them, but they mainly kind of tie into various legends of monsters in the dark from different, everywhere from like the North American indigenous people to there's clans that claim from Africa, like ghouls and stuff that walked. So Baba Yaga had a pretty good run. Yeah. But she got killed.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So,
was it John Wick?
This is a really good call. It looks like John Wick, like the movie writers took a lot of this from the Baba Yaga tale. Yeah. Because essentially a Niktuku named Vasilisa, essentially, if I understand this correctly, and I'm sure, well, hopefully somebody's listening to this who basically is mad. Yeah, I butcher this stuff. But legend says that to get close to Baba Yaga, this ancient other vampire had to complete 3 impossible tasks.
Okay, so now we're talking about Hercules.
And John Wick.
To
get out of the business, he had to do 3 impossible tasks. And then upon completing them, this weird shape-shifting, powerful old entity killed Baba Yaga sometime in around 1998.
Oh, she had a long run.
Yeah. 7,000 years of essentially culling the Bruja of Russia.
Wow. So, that's something.
Yeah. So that's pretty impressive. That was pretty interesting to me. Yeah. So there are different versions of the Niktuku. Over the years, some of the newer materials took them out of myth and put them into more like an actual playable clan.
Really?
So the Niktuku
How did it work?
So they're characterized as essentially an offshoot of the Nosferatu who can only feed off kindred. So they're forced to hunt kindred.
So they're not really welcome anywhere.
No, they're hunt on sight. Like they're 100% kill on sight. They're driven by the need to feed off other kindred, so that accomplishes essentially their sire's goal of hunting down the Nosferatu. They also have an innate calling for dark places, but not underground. So they have a tendency to like find precarious havens on cliff sides and rotted old buildings and stuff, partially because of the instinct that they know what's deep in the dark. Like that's where their prey is, so they shouldn't sully those grounds with their own havens. And then, of course, some of the versions of like their lore also claim that Baba Yaga is the first of their line instead of, the maid. As I said, there was that other version of the lore that stated that there were 3 that got away.
Yeah.
In that version, I believe one of them is Medusa.
Oh.
I think one of them is Medusa. Possibly a character that at least inspired Medusa. Hideousness, once again, being a theme. it all gets kind of messy after a while.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the culture of the Nosferatu. So what do you think a bunch of scary, powerful vampires would be really, really good at?
I mean, kind of carving out their own piece of territory and, keeping themselves safe and, scrounging up food and maybe being like the bouncers, so to speak, or the bullies that other clans might use to do stuff.
Definitely a viable thing. They're definitely monsters. They definitely can serve that role. But they're also super good at being in the places with the other disenfranchised and the places where people don't want to look. So they are also infamous for being brokers and spymasters.
Gotcha. Yep. The people you don't want to look at, you just kind of walk past.
The untouchables, so to speak. So Nosferatu are this is so ingrained in the Nosferatu culture that essentially when a Nosferatu embraces their childer, which we should talk about that too, they have a tendency of the first years of their raising their new offspring is to kind of put them into a possibly quite hellish Saw-like situation where riddle games, memorization exercises, and other activities are meant to imprint upon them the skills they need to survive in the world of paranoia.
Teach them the ropes.
Oh yeah. Nosferatu tend to present themselves as antisocial creatures, so they basically don't play the games of Elysium, and instead of focusing acquisition of knowledge to make themselves irreplaceable. So, what do you think the Nosferatu Antribu and Titribu, essentially the ones that went against the Camarilla, what kind of dark cousins could the Nosferatu have? Turns out that once you're a monster, a dark cousin is also a monster. So there's not a big difference.
I mean, I would assume.
Yeah, there's no real difference between the Sabbat Nosferatu and the Camarilla cousins, other than their loyalty. And the Nosferatu generally have a creed of clan before politics.
Okay.
So they're more likely to kind of bond with other Nosferatu than listen to like the expanded clans. Interestingly enough, the Nosferatu of the Sabbat are perhaps the most humane of all the Sabbat clans.
Really?
So having transcended the need for brutality, the creeps have come to grips with their monstrosity. So where the Sabbat basically give in to a lot of, they're essentially throwing away their humanity and going down a path of something else. The Nosferatu essentially in that position don't feel the need to give in to bloodlust or senseless slaughter because they're already kind of, monsters. And they also heighten up their calculated antisocial scheming behavior of knowledge creation and making sure that they're always useful.
Okay.
So Nosferatu and Titribu are a member of the Sabbat, basically always knows exactly the response they're looking for. They always know how much respect or fear they need to instill in anyone they deal with because they really need to control all their appearance or all their kind of view to the other members of just the Sabbat. That's kind of how screwed up the Sabbat is. So both sides have a pathological fear of their own antediluvian. So some Nosferatu kind of seem to eschew the Camarilla support in favor of the sect that is essentially obsessed with hunting down elders and evil.
Right.
So it kind of makes sense. It's like, oh, well,
get rid of the problem first.
Exactly. So to circle back, let's talk about the embrace.
Okay. This sounds, like it might be weird.
Weird a little bit. So let's start. What type of people do these Nosferatu target? What do you think? The monsters. Who do you think?
Well, I mean, talking about your quote from earlier, those with ugly souls, I kind of feel like it's the people that the popular crew that are a bunch of dickheads, that kind of person.
This is a good call. So the Nosferatu basically have a tendency of two polar extremes of their preferred choice for childer. One group, kind of interestingly, are those who the embrace would be a step up. So think of this as the Nosferatu essentially giving a hand up to the homeless, the untouchable.
Somebody who's already worse off than they are.
Yeah. This is kind of interesting because this is the kind of them almost thinking
helping
that what they're doing is
charity.
they're charity. And like, you already have a hard life, so here, let me give you the skills to exist in this world.
Jesus Christ, I looked in the mirror and I look horrible, but you actually make me feel bad. So yeah, here you go, buddy.
Yeah, I think like a kind Nosferatu sire is probably one of the biggest insults you could ever have. Like, what did you?
Gee, thanks.
Oh man, I don't think it was that bad.
Does this mean I have herpes forever now?
Is it? Do you have something here? Is it all over here?
All over.
All over my face.
All over your face. I mean, you smelled bad before. I mean, you actually smell better now. That's weird. I mean, it's not good. It's not good at all.
It's stable. It's stable now. So the second class is where the embrace is a step down, a poignant, specific,
a slap in the face,
intentional step down. These are beauty queens, people from privileged backgrounds. These are Nosferatu are nefarious for revenge embraces, and a
lot of that on Pornhub.
And Nosferatu love to take someone from a privileged, austere, better than thou position and embrace them through this horrible process of their particular change. And they have a particular word in their clan, a particular name that they like to call these people.
Yeah.
The Cleopatra.
Ooh. Not good.
Yeah. We're basically doomed to lead miserable lives, and then they themselves usually pick out other targets that piss them off in the same ways. As, you know.
It's just a cycle of revenge.
No, very much so.
I can get behind that. I can understand that.
I mean, there are days, yeah. Also, during the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages, it was known that sometimes a court of vampires, usually led by a adventurer or a toreador, like someone of the high clans, would often use the threat of embrace from a Nosferatu as a form of punishment to ghouls and humans.
That's got to really just build your self-esteem if you're that Nosferatu.
Like, thanks, Hank. I have feelings too.
I might be disgusting, covered in boils, and smell really bad, but you're a monster.
This is the dark truth of it. So, the embrace of Nosferatu specifically, unlike many of the other clans, is actually exceptionally painful. So their bodies warp and twist as the blood creates a new vampire. The chance of a person dying during a Nosferatu embrace is actually much higher than the other clans, and many emerge as simple brutes, their brains damaged and incapable of higher thought.
Oh, man, that's no good.
So there are Nosferatu like shock troops who are just basically ruined by their embrace.
That's got to be rough considering what their abilities are.
Yeah. Yes. Rumors also tell that many of those poor souls are actually killed by their own sire as a kind of a form of mercy to spare them from an eternity of pain and misery. But some of them have gotten lucky and basically been squirreled away by their sires who attempt to kind of coax them through this rough process and, you know, find some hope of horrible eternity that comes with this. But to say this doesn't mean that all Nosferatu are inherently monstrous looking, especially the newer versions of the game and the newer editions have basically honed the point of the Nosferatu are hideous in some aspect. They're
disturbing.
Yeah, their curse can present itself as a myriad of different methods. They can be like hideous fanged monsters with no hair and boils and stuff. Or they can just be, you know, that actress who now looks far too gaunt, her eyes too sunken in. She looks alien almost like, and, you know, she's like
eyes are too far apart.
She's got a leading role in a movie that
2 men in movies.
Yeah, you know, something like she looks like a twisted version of like, you know, the ideal self that people once thought she was. Also, like the, you know, they can just be creepy.
Yeah,
you know, Nosferatu could just be
that means there's a lot of Nosferatu.
Could be just that creepy dude in a con sitting in the corner, heavily breathing, looking at you. You know, that could be a Nosferatu too.
Explains the con smell.
It's literally death. Literally death. So let's start talking about what gifts. Well, let's talk about life as a Nosferatu.
Okay.
So Nosferatu in 5th edition have access to the disciplines of Animalism, Obfuscate, and Potence. We'll get to those in a second. Their bane is repulsiveness. So
no
hideous and vile, all Nosferatu count as having the repulsive flaw and can never increase their rating in the looks merit. So basically, if they try to disguise themselves, they incur a penalty. But the whole point is that they just always are going to have a sense of unsettling or a hideousness amongst them. And their compulsion is cryptophilia.
Cryptophilia?
Which is being consumed with a hunger for secrets.
Oh, that kind of crypto. Yeah. Okay. I was thinking, okay, we're going back down into the catacombs here.
No, not quite that. So Nosferatu have a tendency to obsess about secrets and knowledge and safeguarding that and wanting to know things no one else knows. And it's literally almost as strong as the need for blood.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, Nosferatu is going to be essentially a bank of hidden dark knowledge about wherever they live that is super useful and would be a wonderful thing to get out of them if they didn't also live in a horrible place.
Right.
They themselves were an apex predator in that location. So
you almost need like some kind of neutral zone.
That's why a lot of Nosferatu don't like hanging out in this Elysium, because there's too many people who want to barter.
Yeah.
So what do these disciplines give them? Well, I remember, the Tremere and the Venture don't have Potence. So Potence is the first one.
This is new.
So
they don't have, nobody's had Animalism yet either.
Yeah.
Or Obfuscate, really.
So this is all
of them are new.
Full smorgasbord of abilities here.
Yeah.
So Potence is the classical, hey, we're strong.
Oh. They just make themselves strong?
Yep. So they're going to get abilities that allow themselves to essentially punch so hard that they do lethal damage. So they can do is the equivalent of like structural damage to a human. They can use their ability to soar, dozens of times higher than a normal person can. Leaping.
So this is just the physical embodiment of
this is hulking out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like their prowess basically literally just adds into their strength.
Mm-hmm.
So they can far exceed the limitations of a normal vampiric character.
I gotcha.
They can basically drain a human dry in a matter of seconds if they wanted to.
Oh, wow. Like just squeeze them like a grape, huh?
Just like, whoop, mine. It's kind of like one of those sun
yeah. Capri Sun.
Capri Sun, yeah. Just like humans are just all little Capri Sun bags.
I always have trouble getting a straw in, though.
They've also pulled the Dracula thing of climbing on walls and stuff. Because
that makes sense.
Uncanny grip, where they basically can like hold themselves on virtually any. Their blood can be used to make other vampires strong, even other mortals strong, and then eventually they hit a point where their bare hands can basically do lethal damage to both mortals and kindred alike.
Oh,
called the Fist of Cain.
That sounds kind of badass.
Yes, and bear in mind that Potence, I think, much like Celerity, one of the powers is just, like I said, it's adding to your strength. So they're always getting a secondary effect to this ability, which is pretty awesome. So horrible monsters in the dark, and
they're busting through walls.
Yeah,
it's basically Jason Voorhees.
Oh yeah, I think a lot of like serial killer kind of monstrous 80s villains would fall into a Nosferatu category pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jason, Mike Myers, Freddy Krueger, they're all just different takes on Nosferatu if you wanted to. So animalism is like your engagement with animals. I guess this is like the one thing in their life that might be a little bit like, well, the rabbit. He's got still love a kitty cat and a puppy dog. Thanks. I'll rip your head off. So they can basically get familiars. They can tap into their animalistic nature and like sense the beast, communicate with animals, kind of control the beast in people, and then eventually like make people flip out or make vampires flip out and give into the beast, but also like control and dominate animals.
That sounds really convenient.
So that's pretty handy, especially for gathering information, because the guy that can talk to the rats.
Right. I mean, rats are everywhere in a big city.
So you get the rat and pigeon populations going down. And
they're both rats. You just said rats twice.
Scat rats and the normal crawly rats. But that combined with their third ability, which goes into the whole hunter thing, because they say that Papa Nosferatu was supremely talented at stalking, and every stalker needs to find a way to cloak themselves in shadows, which is Obfuscate. Obfuscate is an amazing discipline that is not just becoming invisible. Mm-hmm. It's using vampiric abilities to convince everybody you're not there.
Mm.
So right off the bat for low-level Obfuscate, you can either be invisible or be silent. Then as you get better in it, this carries with you as you move. You can basically make sure that you you can extend this to animals that you... Yeah.
Familiars,
yeah. You can basically extend it to familiars and eventually you can extend it to other vampires if you're friendly enough. So you have Cloak the Gathering where you can actually just take a bunch of companions with you and convince everybody that you're not there.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, too, is there's a combo with Auspex where you can basically double talk.
Double talk?
Which is pretty interesting, where you can say one thing but mean something else to someone else.
Oh.
So people don't understand even though you're saying two different things at the same time. Kind of cool.
That's actually really interesting.
Of course, classic Mask of 1,000 Faces. Mm-hmm. You appear as someone that they would expect to be there, but you can't control who that person is.
Mm-hmm.
Ghost in the Machine. Their powers start working on machines and recording devices.
Oh, that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, so, hey, even that podcaster, there's no safety behind the camera. And then ultimately, obviously, you go into Cloak the Gathering is one of their pinnacle abilities, Imposter Guise, where they can actually choose who they want to look like.
Okay.
And then, of course, Vanish, which is just to disappear. They can be talking to you, and then you completely rationalize that they just weren't there anymore. Direct observation, and they just swear he went out for a pack of cigarettes. He's gonna be back. Tear. Yeah. Okay, so it wouldn't be a session of Nosferatu talking about them without mentioning some of their achievements.
Okay.
Specifically, I thought this would be a great place to talk about Uncle Smelly.
Uncle Smelly. Okay.
Smelly.
Is that his Christian name?
No. He was born as Gerald Roffin. He is a 9th generation Nosferatu of New York City and one of the pioneers of ShrekNet.
Oh, okay. This is important.
So the original ShrekNet 1.0 was essentially a kind of a special network that piggybacked the internet. Mm-hmm. It was used exclusively for communication among Nosferatu. Once again, they wanted to kind of share not really their knowledge, but mainly they were just really wanted to understand if anybody had any sightings of Nick Tuco. It's like the one piece of information they're willing to share is just like, hey, did you see a boogeyman?
Yeah.
Anybody see a boogeyman? You saw a boogeyman? Anybody disappear that we didn't know about? There were a lot of variations that popped up during this time as various Nosferatu started different nets and different webs that were kind of like all connected to the ShrekNet. But basically, yeah, it was essentially kind of a hodgepodge network of various subsystems that were all connected together, even across the lines of political boundaries. Because the Nosferatu of the Camarilla would talk to the Nosferatu of the Sabbat and kind of back and forth.
The Sabbat?
The Sabbat. The Nosferatu, like I said, clan first.
Yeah.
Like political ideology second. So over time, this was replaced by ShrekNet 2.0. So ShrekNet 2.0 was basically designed as a vampiric, it's kind of, there's a part of this that calls out to me. It was an application suite created by Nosferatu programmers to specifically to facilitate kindred use of the internet. So basically, not only was it like a network, but it was actually a whole design kit with which you could make websites that mortals would see one thing, but those using Auspex would see something different.
That's badass.
So ShrekNet was like this whole project, 2.0 was like this whole project designed to basically have this carrier through the entire internet where kindred society could essentially keep tabs on each other. They could find backdoors. They even had their own browser that they displayed. It's like little
Dracula.
See, it's a little like, Vampire V spinning.
Turns into a bat. It turns into a V.
Netscape logo. It's like that, the pixelated, just like V. Oh man. I want that. I want ShrekNet 2.0. But yeah, so basically the whole point of this was that you could essentially teach a young kindred the methods needed to find this and use it, and essentially they can communicate with other kindred and not, run the risk of breaching the masquerade. as obvious, this undertaking was massively supported by the Camarilla, and it was used extensively throughout the world, which is ultimately why, hey, when the mortals found it and figured out how to use it, everything went downhill. Pretty horrible. United States intelligence organizations gained access to ShrekNet, and basically that was a very strong part in the rise of the Second Inquisition. Kind of, Papa Cami, the Camarilla Inner Circle, pretty much put out the hard, like, if anybody tries to do this and when any point again, you're immediately blood hunted. Doesn't mean that the Nosferatu aren't going to find them some shenanigans.
Not particularly listening too hard.
But, aside from, secreted communications and, discreet disloyalty, nothing as wide spreading as ShrekNet 2.0 has really been happened since. It was a major weak point, and like by getting access to it, basically the intelligence agencies had the keys to the kingdom. So that was pretty rough.
Do we have any particular famous Nosferatu?
Uncle Smelly, he was pretty famous. Baba Yaga. There's also Calibros.
Okay.
The erstwhile Prince of New York.
Oh.
So brought this up because in stuff that we kind of talked about, we did a different take on New York, but essentially during the Battle of New York, where the Camarilla took back New York City from the Sabbat, it was a Nosferatu prince that helped establish New York City and promptly immediately abdicated his throne.
Because I'm going to fix this shit and I'm getting the hell out of here.
Pretty much, because he was just like, I'm going to lurk here underground and I'm going to start my own group, and whoever takes the throne is going to understand that I'm down here. So apparently, he gained a lot of notoriety for doing that, which is pretty cool.
Very interesting.
So who would play in Nosferatu?
I would.
They're pretty awesome.
Yeah, they are pretty cool. I mean, you can't be a person that is like, I'm going to be the social butterfly, because you'll never be that person. It sounds like you'll always be shunned no matter where you go, what you do. Even if you're trying to help people out, they're going to be like, oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Now go away.
It's actually pretty funny because Jerry from Penny Arcade plays a Nosferatu in Seattle by Night. And he plays a Nosferatu who is essentially established during the 20s and 30s, during the roaring 20s and stuff like that.
20s, yeah.
So he's always prim and proper in his suit. He always has the perfect decorum, and he's just the perfect representative, and at the same time, none of his abilities help that. He's the creepiest person you'll ever see. Yeah. And it was really funny because I think because of that, the way they play it on that show is a lot of the Nosferatu, when they meet each other and stuff, it's all about their etiquette and decorum. And they're kind of oh, no, we must use the fine china.
Everything's still chipped and beat up, but that's the nice china.
No, please take a draught from this crystal. Oh yes, I remember the year this was released. Yeah, that was always an interesting kind of take on it. I think pretty easily you go down the rabbit of secrets.
Oh, absolutely. Anybody wants to be some kind of spy master, secret keeper, that's obvious. I mean, it sounds like you've got some room to do some pretty nefarious stuff too, if you really wanted to. Yeah,
I mean, I know we haven't really talked about it, that as during your kindred lifespan, you're likely to get other forms of disciplines that you'll have earned through negotiations and getting a taste of somebody's blood or something like that. But your core clan disciplines are what you're going to get accessible, very accessible, and then you can get them cheaply. And I mean, Nosferatu come right out of the gate with invisibility and surge strength.
Yes.
That's awesome, So if you can't get that truck started, just push it down there.
Yep. Or somebody doesn't know how to drive,
I'll just keep pushing.
Yep. No, I mean, that's cool. I mean, it means you're good in a fight, and if you need to get away, well, at least you can get away.
Yeah, it's that clutch moment of they don't have the defensive ability to take away damage, but then they can just not be there.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like that Nosferatu just I'm going to sneak away, and then I'm going to go get a truck. And I'm going to go put this truck over your head, and I'm going to just show up and let it go.
You're going to find a really heavy rock.
And I hit him with a rock. Well, I got close.
Or you just walk around with a battle axe obfuscated all the time.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. Nosferatu are definitely a clan. If you're going to play the character, you got to kind of get into the whole fact that you're going to be struggling with this concept of inner beauty, inner monstrousness versus outer. I really love the take where the Nosferatu Antribu are probably the most humane of the Sabbats.
Yeah.
They're just like, yeah, I look like a monster, but we don't have to be monsters.
Right.
The beautiful Sabbat are like, why'd you ripped off 18 kids' heads in the orphanage? She probably didn't need to do that.
Yes, but I wanted to.
Well, that's kind of creepy. Yeah, like I said, so the question of who are the real monsters of the night? It's not the Nosferatu.
I mean, maybe they are.
Unless they want to. It's a good reason why in Vampire Society you don't go trudging around in the sewers without a really big stick.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess our excitement got the better of us, and I kind of blew through that pretty.
Yeah, that's all right.
But they're pretty cool. Nosferatu are one of the core clans. We're kind of rounding out our journey through the Camarilla basic, through the core. We'll be getting to the Anarchs pretty soon, but we do have one group left for next time. So
who's that going to be?
Well, I think if anything was the opposite of the Nosferatu, it would have to be a clan of beautiful monsters. Wonder who they could be.
I don't know. I don't like them already.
All right. Well, unless you have anything to do or say.
I have plenty of things to do, but to say, no, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, once again, guys, we appreciate you joining us here at the table, even if this is a short one. We hope all your boogeymen stay in the closet, and if you get embraced, hopefully it's not too painful. Bye.